The Philadelphia 76ers have been the biggest winner of this year's offseason, bringing in Paul George as well as extending Tyrese Maxey to build the long-term core into true trio of the franchise. And now they are faced with the decision to hand Joel Embiid the contract extension, which he surely has earned, the former MVP, showing his faith in the organization by sticking things through. We do have a little update on what specifically is going down behind the scenes, so I want to break down what's being said, why this makes sense for both the Sixers and Joel Embiid, why I do think the situation or the decision is ultimately a no-brainer. But to dive into specifically what we're talking about here, we did get this report. Shout out to Michael KB over there at 97.3 ESPN, great dude, and he writes that Joel Embiid, quote, is expected to begin contract extension negotiations with the Sixers since the Olympics have ended. And then the full article stating that, quote, now that the Olympics are over, the Star Center is expected to discuss a contract extension with the Philadelphia 76ers prior to the start of the 24-25 NBA season, according to a league source. Sure, there are some concerns given the injury history and an advancing age, but the Sixers are assuredly going to offer Embiid an extension. And rightfully so with this situation that I don't think it is that much of a decision to be made. You do have to reward guys, and I will get into the if things go wrong at the tail end of this, but I want to start off with if things go right, that you finally have this trio built around Joel Embiid, the true stars to complement him from a skill set standpoint, and this was the grand plan. This was the Daryl Morey cap space plan. Now, I'm not going to beat around the bush and not acknowledge that this is going to be a pricey contract, that due to the kickers that come in when you stick with the franchise that draft you, staying with the team for an extended period of time, that at this current time, there are only 3 players in the NBA that have stuck with the team that drafted them longer than Joel Embiid. That being Steph Curry, number 1, Giannis Antetokounmpo, number 2, and Chris Middleton also up there in Milwaukee at number 3. He is tied for third with Dwight Powell of the Dallas Mavericks, who somehow has also been there forever, but I don't think he's quite on the stratosphere of these other guys that we're talking about. So to bring in what the numbers are, and we all know about the ascending cap, that with the TV deal and all these type of things, TNT, why that went out the drain, and all those type of numbers that are coming in, I did want to pull up the exact figures here that we are talking about for the specific numbers, and here we are. So if on July 18th, the Sixers can offer Joel Embiid the 3-year, $192.9 million contract. So, of course, that date has passed, and that number is available to be offered. He would need to decline his $59 million player option for the 26-27 season, and then the salary would look the following. In 26-27, $59.5 million. 27-28, $64.3 million, and then 28-29, $69 million there. That is a ton of money, but it's the modern NBA. And the article continues on. Shout out to Brian Toparic for the breakdown here. That it says Embiid would have to sign the extension prior to the first day of the 24-25 regular season, since he still has multiple years left on his contract. He'll be ineligible to sign the extension once the regular season begins. If he declines to sign an extension this summer, the Sixers could offer him a 4-year, $266.7 million max extension the next offseason. He could instead decide to test unrestricted free agency in the summer of 2026, where he'll be eligible for a 5-year, $34.3 million max deal. The bottom line is he's going to get paid. And I do understand the pushback that these numbers are just so ludicrous to wrap your head around, not even considering like the normal people outlook, what you and me are putting on our pockets, how insane that is, that I will work my entire life and not touch what Joel Embiid will make in a year. But the bottom line is, this is the NBA. And what I think my kind of pushback to all these conversations of that is too much money or whatever, all you're really rooting for is the owners to be making more. That's why the NBA got it right, or the Players Association of the NBA got it right, is they have everything negotiated down to a revenue split. That these salary caps are based on making 51% of the profits that the league takes in, that each organization takes in. So while I understand the immediate knee-jerk reaction for how much money that is, the reality is that they did right by their players, and I would prefer it go in the players' pockets than the owners, if I'm being completely honest here. Now, back to Joel Embiid specifically, and why I think this makes sense to show good faith and give Joel Embiid this. We've seen the good faith that he's shown in the organization. The guy that has embodied the process himself has outlived all these eras, whether it be the Brian Colangelo, Sam Hinkie, Brett Brown, Elton Brand, all these different just periods of Sixers basketball that he's lived through, and all he's done is gotten better and improved. And coming off a year in which he averaged 34.7 points per game, 11 rebounds, and 5.6 assists, not to mention the 1.7 blocks and 1.2 steals, while shooting a ridiculous 52.9% from the floor, he's every bit the MVP maybe the Sixers could have hoped. He's exceeded every bit of expectation from the on-court ability, and now he finally has the horses to run with him. And speaking of those horses there, they've already been taken care of. That we're talking about Paul George receiving a contract in which he's making his 4-year, $212 million there. Tyrese Maxey getting paid with his 5-year, $204 million contract there. That you can't take care of the guys around him and not reward your superstar, because if there is no Joel Embiid, who knows what the type of conversations we're having. And shout out to all these guys. They obviously play a huge role. And to dive into what they bring on the floor, don't want to go without acknowledging Tyrese Maxey and the step that he took forward this year. 25.9 points per game, 6.2 assists, shot 45% from the field, 37.3% from three, and then bringing in Paul George, who will produced last year a 22.6 point per game performance. Also added 5.2 rebounds and 3.5 assists. Shot a ridiculous 41.3% from beyond the three-point arc, and I cannot wait to see what that looks like next to Joel Embiid, where the spacing is going to be incredible, the best I think of his career. And another message that Joel Embiid has very clearly shared throughout his career is his desire for a little bit of continuity. That as much as there's been all these Sixers failures in the playoffs, it very rarely has been the same core. Really, the only consistent player dating back to this point has been Tobias Harris surrounding him. That he's been a guy, and that's even starting in the 2018-19 season. Let's not forget that entering last year, that Furkan Korkmaz was the longest tenured Sixer behind Joel Embiid. That he has not had these opportunities to go to war with the same guys year in and year out. And that's something that he spoke about following the exit from the postseason here. We have this quote from Joel when facing the media that he says, quote, "Like I said, all of them lasted 1 year," Embiid said after the first round loss to the New York Knicks. "That's the problem. Who won last year? Denver. Jamal, Nikola. They've been together for 8 years or something like that. 7. You look at some of the teams out there that have won, Golden State Warriors. They've been together for a long time. I don't remember you just putting a team together and hope that it worked out for 1 year. The big fella is a student of the game. He sees that teams that have won in the past, the Denver Nuggets, kept their core together despite some shortcomings, and they won a championship. He wants the same in Philadelphia." And Embiid continues on to say, quote, "That's on those guys," meaning the front office. "That's what they get paid for. Our job is to get better as basketball players every single year. Every single year I find a way to get better. Tyrese has gotten so much better, and I think there's even another step that he can take. Some of the guys in the locker room, they've gotten better. Every single year, I've gotten better. So I'm excited to keep working on my game and myself, keep getting better, but when it comes to the guys around, I like our group of guys." So I do agree with the outlook here, and I think the Boston Celtics are another example who obviously won the championship this year. Let's not forget how much there was critiques for, do you need to break up Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, or does this team have what it takes to get over the edge? And ultimately, they trusted their own process, they stuck through things, and they achieved that championship goal by finding the right pieces to surround these guys. For the first time truly in the Joel Embiid era, that it does feel there's a core in place. And to take a bit of a look at kind of the multi-year salary cap here, that you can see that Joel Embiid still locked in for a minimum of 2 more seasons. There is the player option, and of course, if he does sign this full-scale extension this offseason, essentially Joel Embiid will be in a Sixers uniform for the next 5 years. There is Paul George, who signed that 4-year contract. Tyrese Maxey, who's on the books for 5 more years. Caleb Martin, who has a 3-year deal and then a player option. That is going to be a key piece of this puzzle. A guy that I truly think has gone somewhat underrated in the conversation for how impactful he's going to be to the Sixers team. And I guarantee he's going to be a player that ultimately ends up a fan favorite. KJ Martin, I know we've talked about that, essentially is going to be a bit of a trade piece, but there is the 2 years on that deal there. Jared McCain could be a guy who sticks around. Kelly Oubre Jr. is a guy who very clearly is happy to be returning and was a key piece on this team last year. He has the 1-year contract and that player option. I think it's more likely than not that he will be in uniform the following season with the Sixers team as well. The point being that there is a bit of a core in place, and now is the time to put all those chips in the middle and let this team see how good they truly can be. Now, if we do want to look at this a little bit glass half empty, that maybe this doesn't work as good as we think. That maybe the Paul George injury concerns continue to pop up. Joel's not getting healthier. He doesn't have that opportunity to go on that deep playoff run the way we hoped. You still would rather have this guy under contract. And the reason that I say that is you never get better as a franchise when you let talented players walk out the door for nothing. That the best case scenario is either you stay with the player or you get something in return. If you allow Joel Embiid to hit free agency and sign with another team, it's a massive mistake. The Clippers are going to feel the pain of how much they gave up for Paul George for him to just walk away for nothing in return. That is just bad asset management from a franchise, and that's something that the Sixers should not allow themselves to remotely be put in that position. I don't think it is a severe danger that Joel Embiid wants to leave Philadelphia. It certainly is not this year, and I think all of those talks kind of have been put to the side since they have had such an effective offseason. But if they are to spark back up, you're going to want to have him under contract so you can at least bring something back. That no, you're not going to win a deal trading away the talent of Joel Embiid, that you really can't go up from a talent perspective from what this guy is. And even with the injury concerns, you still got to live with the peaks that he can perform at. But the bottom line is, if you put him under contract, if you have something that as a trade chip and a guy that you can get something back for if things are to go south, that you have the beginning of your rebuild in a way that you otherwise wouldn't. So hopefully that is not the case, and we don't have to worry about that angle as a whole. That I do think now is the time for this Sixers team to put their chips in the middle and figure out if this trio's got what it takes to get over that championship hump. But we should be feeling as great about the Sixers as we could be in many years at this point. So let's not hesitate. Let's not overthink this. Hand Joel Embiid a blank check and let him fill out as much as he wants. That's ultimately how I do hope those negotiations go between Daryl Morey and Joel Embiid. And honestly, I don't expect any different in that regard. So I'll keep you posted if there is any more news from this area of the Sixers. I do expect Joel Embiid to ultimately sign on the dotted line and sign up to be a part of this franchise for at least 5 more years, carry him through the length of his prime, and ultimately see where the franchise is at this point. But let me know if you guys are entirely with me. Do you think there should be any thought to not handing him that extension? Because I frankly just don't. Either way, I do want to hear from you guys. Make sure you're dropping that like button on this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll be talking to you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.